last talky thing before the keynote-y thing. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging on. All right, I did a bout of writing, and the slideshow's ready to go. I think we're ready here. So this presentation is about our research creation project to build a solar-powered modded Minecraft server with custom mods, give access to real-time data about the energy production and consumption of the system as a condition of possibility for playing the game. The goal of our project is to blend or to bleed the actual material conditions of gameplay, the computer hardware, networking, and energy infrastructure with the production of the game world itself. So that rather than just playing a game with a thematics or a message about energy transition, we're endeavoring to provide a direct, tangible, playable experience of energy infrastructures which make these game experiences possible. Now, I don't need to remind this group that anything we want to do or say about our climate futures with respect to digital media in general, or digital games in particular, is already circumspect. So-called eco-games or ecologically themed games are no exception to the trend in green media, which extols post-Anthropocenic imaginaries of human relations to the planet through the increasingly hegemonic assemblages of digital networks, platforms, labor practices, technologies, which are themselves the objects of critique. A wave of criticisms from folks like Ben Abraham, Linda Chang, Paolo here, Patrick here, a bunch of other people who are in this room, has not put much of a dent in the increasing popularity and marketability of eco-games at all levels, from educational game design with kids to indie studios and big budget AAA. There's nothing bad about this. It's a sign of the times that game makers find value in offering us stories, more or less interactive, about our climate polycrisis. But the irony is that our cherished medium is the most damaging to the planet of any storytelling medium ever conceived, and with the implication of large language models and ever more prodigious graphics and simulation, the situation is getting worse, not better. If globalized platform capitalism can be seen as a major driver of planetary uninhabitability across all registers, then playing digital games, especially eco-games, is the proverbial fiddling around while Rome burns. One response can certainly be to throw out your gaming PCs and your consoles, or actually recycle them rather, or maybe you should get off the platforms and play reused low tech, keeping your carbon footprint down and asymptotically aiming for the no trace video game. Digital sobriety is certainly on the menu, but we want to point game studies in a slightly different direction. To play less with games themselves and more with the social material conditions for playing those games. We'll take our cue from our illustrious host and claim that digital games are nothing but an elaborate excuse for playing with technology. The game itself is not the point. We've already seen a material turn in game studies, and I played my part in this long ago when I argued that the living room becomes a player in games with the Nintendo Wii, for instance. But now we need to take another turn, a distinctly infrastructural turn. We should not reject digital platforms, we should play with them, poke at them, rip their frickin' guts out, and put them back together. Frankenstein platforms, hacks, mashups, mods. Do it together, do it for free, and make it count as academic productivity. What is at stake in climate action from an infrastructural game studies perspective is not telling more hopeful or critical stories, but pragmatically reconfiguring our relation to the invisible and take it for granted infrastructures that make platform capitalism, even green platform capitalism, possible. Our motto, we need to play games differently, not play different games. So let me just show you this teaser for our public modded Minecraft SMP, which means survival multiplayer game, launching to the public this Sunday. And yes, we're freaking out, absolutely freaking out. I'll tell you more in a bit. And this will show you where we are right now, and then I'll try to entice you to look at and act past the game itself.
Hello, I'm hopping on. How's the battery looking?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're at 1241, 48%.
Ooh, that's grim.
It's a little grim.
It's okay, we still have 53 hours. We should be fine.
How much time do we need? Really? What's the weather gonna be like tomorrow? I'm looking it up.
And it's saying it's going to be sunny.
Here's an apocryphal slide. It's got lots of numbers on it. The numbers for Minecraft's carbon footprint don't actually quite make sense. Yet intuitively, we understand why Minecraft might matter when we want to talk about games and climate. I could do the Ben Abraham thing and run the numbers for the roughly 215 million monthly active players of Minecraft, and you'd see that the scale is significant, and maybe you'd even be amazed. We should care, of course, but we should keep the problem in perspective. The game is not the problem. The problem is the carbon load of electricity that runs the hardware that runs the game, to say nothing of the load of the materials used to build the electrical infrastructure and the hardware. It's sort of silly to worry about the relative energy savings of 30 versus 60 frames per second when the average computer power supply unit is already wasting as much power as hundreds of hours of runtime. And even this is trivial if we compare the carbon emissions from coal versus hydro, for that matter. So please go ahead and play at 120 FPS. I mean, you won't notice much of a difference, but maybe do it with solar power. Along this chain of energy consumption, we became interested in three things. Firstly, the slice of the carbon footprint belonging to the Java version PC gamers and especially modded Minecraft players versus, for instance, the much larger proportion of Bedrock version console players. With some estimates of the Java version players at around 30 million monthly players, which is still quite a lot. The reason for this is that PCs, as you probably already know, consume orders of magnitude more power than consoles. But unlike consoles players, PC players can also do something about it. Secondly, we're interested in the issue of server idle uptime and the carbon costs of maintaining thousands of 24/7 game worlds, which are rarely played. And in fact, more often the case than not, it's a situation where the total idle power consumption far exceeds actual gameplay consumption. So you're burning much more electricity by having these things sit idle. So this speaks to the general sustainability issues around idle compute and cultures of convenience, the price we pay for the always-on game world as an allegory for ubiquitous power. Finally, there is the game. And I probably don't need to explain to this group that Minecraft is also important because aside from being one of the most played games of all time, still, at its core, it's a beautiful humanistic game about utopia, modernity, industrialization, colonialism, and extraction. It's Minecraft, remember? If one of the huge issues in energy transition is how do we get to carbon neutrality from our current moment, then arguably Minecraft is a great place to puzzle this out. Minecraft already allegorizes our neoliberal condition in which the kids do indeed yearn to return to the mines. So hopefully I've impressed you with the epic stakes of our project enough to tell you that Sunblock is not about lowering the carbon footprint of gaming. It is a research exercise to intervene directly in how we can make and play digital games. To do this, we really don't want to make the most efficient, energy efficient game. We want just the opposite, so that players might care or not care to make the relations between their own energy choices and actions as a part of the game in as seamless, normal, engaging a way as possible. We don't want to make this, we want to make that. Sunblock is a fully functioning and autonomous off-grid, solar-powered modded Minecraft server. We have two of them now. The systems are unexceptional, though hardly transparent to a group of humanities scholars. With some practice, however, DIY solar gaming is very doable, despite Cindy's troubles. It's not bad once you get into it. It's accessible and it's also quite inexpensive. The basic system here consists of a 100-watt solar panel, an MPPT solar controller, a 12-volt, 100-amp-hour lithium battery connected to a mini PC. Sunblock 1 is an Intel Nuke mini PC clone, and Sunblock 2 is an Odroid H4. These run headless with Linux OS, capable of supporting our Forge, Java, Minecraft, and we play on version 1.20.1, server with a custom mod pack of around 200 mods. That's a slide showing the labor of infrastructure. In addition, we use an Arduino microcontroller board with some Python script to collect a variety of data from the solar controller about voltage and current coming from the panel and across the battery, while we also collect CPU temperature and power consumption data from the internal sensors on the mini PC. All of this is fed back to the mini PC and then displayed in our custom solar data mod. We're basically providing real-time energy data visualization as part of the HUD of the game. This does one thing right away. It gives the player a real-time, in-game sense of how long they have to play before the system shuts down for lack of power. This alone is already interesting because it flies in the face of typical Minecraft playing patterns, which limit play via some externalities, such as the need to go to work, or it's dinner time, the parents are yelling at you, or maybe the Microsoft Authenticator isn't working, which happens quite often, and so on. In principle, and especially in Minecraft, gameplay is infinite. We know this. There's no end to the game. It's the huge selling point of the sandbox game. And even more to the point, we are working within a multiplayer server here and not the PC client. Server worlds are typically always on and persistent, allowing players to come and go. And here, this is basically a graph of the idle voltage data as we collect it. So you can see there's a constant draw during idle. And here we're reminded directly that an empty world with no players still draws power. Play on Sunblock is potentially infinite, but of course it depends on how and when you play. The players must consider the battery charge, the weather, and the overall power consumption of the server. But crucially, what you do in the game makes a difference to the power consumption of the server. Oops, sorry, giving that away. Now, I don't want to overblow this. Only certain kinds of in-game actions will register as significant CPU temperature and power draw changes. Remember, we are working server-side and not client. And one obvious and poignant example is walking in-game versus flying. So this is power. We're graphing power here. Power consumption. Anyone here who's played Minecraft knows that flying is a much desired end-game goal, so that without mods, you have to fight the Ender Dragon, hunt down the Elytra, which is kind of wings, in the end. And flying puts pressure on the processor to load parts of the world, which are called chunks, faster than with walking, which significantly dries up the power draw of the CPU. Flying around makes the battery drain faster. Fly too much, and your game will be cut short. When we magnify that to a multiplayer situation, everything becomes much more interesting, since in principle, the players who want the game to last longer must convince other players to stay on the ground. This is more than just window dressing. Players inform each other of the weather. They're nervous if they hog too much server time. They gather in solemn ritual to watch the battery drain and the server shut down. They ask questions and offer suggestions for performance improvements and express interest and curiosity about solar energy. All that wonderful stuff that us, I don't know, eco-game people should love, but also the other stuff, of course. Players who ignore the condition of the battery and server etiquette, revel in making the game unplayable, declare themselves climate deniers, and so on and so forth. Now, we could just study this, but we push further by operationalizing the data and specific game mechanics, moving the materiality of solar power from the operational image on the HUD to a condition of interaction with the world. We provide players with a giant in-game button that allows the players to switch the server from power saver mode to performance mode and back again. In power saver mode, the battery is preserved at the cost of occasional lag, which increases as more players come online. In performance mode, play is less laggy, but it's risky for the players to use for too long, especially if it's cloudy or rainy in Montreal. And there's more.
We've made a solar-powered Minecraft mod. Because our Minecraft server runs on solar energy, we've created a whole suite of tools that harness the power of the real live sun and bring it into the game. When the sun's up and there's a lot of power coming in, your sword hits harder, your tools work quicker, and you can even repair durability just by crouching. When the sun sets, you can tell.
So we've barely scratched the surface of what is possible here in operationalizing this data. But a critical part of our design is the direct enrollment of the Minecraft modding community in imagining and implementing new mechanics. Everything we have is documented and available on our GitHub, and slowly but surely we're doing the ethnographic work of cultivating relationships with the modding scene. The other side of going to the metal, as the engineers like to say, and toying with the hardware is going to the idiocultures of gaming. This is not about the engineer's prototype, it's about playing with others who are not ourselves. If I had more time, I'd provide an accounting of our technical failures on one side of the sheet and our social failures on the other. I'm a sociologist, and I find technical failure so much easier to deal with. This brings me, at last, to the game. For the trees, I channeled Miguel at the start, talking about games as an excuse for playing with technology. It turns out that most folks are actually reticent to play with technology. The idea of building your own solar gaming rig is too daunting, too inconvenient. Technology use is ubiquitously defined by its convenience. And this, I would say, is going to be a huge issue in energy transition. If what drives electric vehicle and solar panel sales is their relative convenience, then ultimately the condition of modernity which created this mess in the first place remains, and we are eco-modernists. To unsettle this, or to stay with the trouble, as Donna Haraway might say, we need an excuse for players to mess with their machines. So we'll make an eco game. Our first game, which we launched last year, was quite successful, but manageably small, unlike our new game, was a mod pack called Gaia's Riddle. It was made as a 12-week SMP experience with a story about living in a world unsettled by ecological catastrophe. Its main selling point was these giant tornadoes which would appear out of nowhere and suck the players into the air, which they just totally loved, but it would also completely destroy the world around. Our newest game, you saw the teaser, is a 6-week SMP, which is launching on Sunday, called For the Trees. This game takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where the goal is to restore the biomes and the forests. We do our best to wrestle with themes of eco-heroism, greenwashing, affect and landscape, gardens and forests, pollution, extraction. Oh, the list is quite long. 3 things matter in terms of our larger approach here, though. First, the game is a direct, on-purpose adaptation or remix of an existing successful mod pack that has already 700,000 downloads called Reclamation. We invited the mod dev of that pack to join our team and not only learned from him a huge amount about making mod packs and mods, but he becomes our gateway to players who are already fans of his, and we leverage their disposition and their familiarity to push players into less familiar experiences. I call this judo design, which is a topic for a whole other paper, where we use the existing momentum of players to push them in different directions. Second, while you can download the pack and play alone, which is part of the long tail of this project, it's designed for multiplayer on Sunblock in the genre of the Minecraft SMP. The most famous of which, if you heard of it, is Hermitcraft, which has millions of viewers for a group of players that get together and play. But there are hundreds of thousands of SMP. It's a super common way to play the game with other people. What an SMP means is active curation, live events, and a Discord always linked to the game. That Discord is crucial because it becomes the outlet for players to interact with one another and produces a rich metagame with more situated paratextual material than Paolo could ever dream of, I promise you. Third, within the game, we can do micro experiments in iterative design. There's way too many examples to cover here, but in this game, which is ostensibly about planting trees in a barren land, we decided, for instance, to disable bone meal. So if you know your Minecraft, you know what I'm talking about. In Minecraft, a planted sapling takes anywhere from 10 to 40 in-game minutes to grow, and players are incentivized to collect bone meal either by farming crops or farming skeletons for their bones and grinding them up, and which speeds up the process. So if you bone meal a sapling, it'll instantly grow, basically. Without this, players must wait for the trees in order to progress in the game. This idea of waiting, not having what you want when you want it, mirrors our experience in trying to work with solar power, as Cindy has so very well talked about. The inconvenience becomes part of the prompt. And as any game designer knows, this is flirting with disaster, because the moment a player can't do what they want is the moment they may quit playing. So like all good design, we try to ride the edge. Sunblock is not a project about directly lowering the carbon footprint. Oh, well, I mean, in one sense it is, I'll be honest. We called our first server Sunblock 1. Why? So we could imagine thousands of solar servers dotting the globe, making one giant off-grid Minecraft metaverse. That would be so cool, it really would. But honestly, if you really wanted your gaming to have a lower footprint, you should solar power your home, buy more efficient gaming hardware, and play less, if not at all, or go play Daybreak. As climate action, Sunblock is not so much about net zero as it is about turning the affordances and constraints of solar energy into game mechanics that simultaneously reveal the otherwise invisible energy infrastructures we all depend on. So why not use a higher end, power-hungry PC as our server rig then if we don't care about energy efficiency? Well, this is where we also advocate not for low carbon design, but lower carbon design. Not so much because we're reducing our footprint, as I said, but because it's intriguing from a gameplay perspective to have infrastructural constraints on play. The mini computers have an 8 to 10, do I have this here? No. The mini computers have an 8 to 10 watt idle draw, and this provides a nice baseline for the players to experience distinct effects of flying with a surge to 20 plus watts. If the server was already drawing 60 plus watts, the effect of flight would simply be noise. You wouldn't see the impact of flight. By the same token, if we used a lesser computer like a Raspberry Pi, which is what Cindy is using, then the lag would be too excessive for flying to care about the difference. Like you just wouldn't be able to experience what we're showing. The game just becomes too frustrating to play. This is a kind of energy threshold game design, trying to find the balance between hardware, software, and player engagement in which the player comes to view the material conditions of their experience as part of the challenge of fun of emergent experience or story. We're arguing that we can have wonderfully immersive, engaging experiences without forgetting infrastructure and systems that enable them. This slide I really like. So this slide shows the blue line is the battery level over time. So what you'll notice, this is a single solar panel. So what you'll notice is despite the green charging cycle, so this is the charging cycle when it's day and night, and this is the power consumption in red, no matter what, on a single panel, eventually your battery will die. It's just a matter of when, but it will. So we call this the roguelike or hardcore version of the game, but if we put a second solar panel on, this is the game, okay? Now note when we're designing games around this, we're not talking about playing sandcastles here in 10 seconds, we're talking about large lengths of time. So when we're designing for these periods of time, they're on SMP timescales, so weeks, if not months at a time, where you really can experience the impact of solar cycles. Here's another fun slide. This graph shows the daily rise and fall of photovoltaic power on our panels. This is from October 2024. And I'd argue that a graph like this is game design gold, because here you have a stable pattern with lots of circumstantial variability. Players know when to look for power. They know when to expect it, but they can't be 100% sure if they will get it and at what intensity. So for a game designer, all you have to do is leverage that stuff. This is the stuff that great games are made out of, a mixture of certainty and uncertainty leading to emergent action, interaction, and world building. The intriguing part is that climate becomes a player in the game. A player enters a boss fight with her solar sword at high noon in Montreal, only to have her victory stolen at the last moment by a passing cloud. Sunblock balances performance and energy costs to prompt a game world where the material conditions for possibility of that world are part of the game. I don't think the challenge for game studies has ever really been any different. The question is, how do we use the game to get outside the game? The game was never the thing.